Well, so I've been growing this plumeria in this container for the last few years. I overwinter it every single winter here in Westchester, Pennsylvania, zone 6B, 7A. And as you can see, it's a tree. It wants to grow big. Sometimes it's going to outgrow its container. Sometimes, you know, in a pot this size, it really can't produce big enough roots to support a stem this long. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to propagate, take a stem cutting that you can then go and replant to create a second plant. Hopefully by removing part of this branch right here, it'll be able to hold its own weight up. So as you can see, it has this 3 section right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut this bottom one off. I have my nice clean sharp shears. These are Felco number 5. And we're just going to cut it off like this. Now don't be tempted to just snag those leaves off. What we're going to do, we're just going to cut them off individually one by one. And you can see that milky sap does emanate. That's why we want to cut them off with our shears, because you could really damage that flesh, the fleshy stem, if you did otherwise. And this is a really nice size cutting. This is maybe 8 inches long. Much longer than that, you know, you could maybe go as much as 10 or 12 inches, but this is a pretty good size little cutting. Well, the first part is good. It did start to stand up a little bit more nicely, so that's great. Step 1, check. So now the next thing that you need to do, you need to allow this to dry, to cure over before we get them planted. So I'm here in this front porch covered area. It doesn't get any direct sunlight and is totally out of any potential precipitation. And this mosquito is just flying in my face. So I'm just going to leave it up here for the next few days until it has a chance to really callus over all of those open wounds that we just created. All right, so it's been a few days. As you can see, the end of the plumeria has started to really callus over. It's no longer soft to the touch. And some of those nubs might just fall off on their own accord. They might callus back over. It doesn't matter, it's gonna be totally fine. So now we're ready to get our cutting planted up. So I have a nice bowl. I've already put some perlite into this bowl, and I'm going to be adding in some potting soil. I like this Coast of Maine natural and organic potting soil. We're going to mix it with perlite. And this perlite is going to really help facilitate great drainage, which is really important because plumerias are succulent plants. They need really good drainage. And that looks like a really nice consistency. So from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it some water. Mix it up nicely. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now, as we are starting with this small size cutting, or a good size cutting, we always want to keep them in a small container to get started. This is going to ensure that the soil doesn't stay too wet for too long, which can cause it to rot. And it's also good because the smaller the pot, this is a 1 quart size container, it's going to allow for that soil to heat up and stay warm better, more quickly, more easily. And that's really important because that is what is going to help our cutting to get rooted. Fill up our pot. And I could probably even do a little bit smaller container than this, but this is pretty good. And in terms of that moisture consistency, you give it a squeeze test. You can see there's some water. That's a little bit more wet than I would have liked, but it's fine. It'll be all good. All right, so now we want to get it planted, and we want to have it maybe about 3 to 4 inches beneath the surface of that soil. So I have just like a stick or something. I'm going to make a little center circle in here. Then I will place it in there. You can just gently pack it in there. I never want to go all the way to the bottom of the pot. I want to leave a little bit of a gap. That's going to allow for the roots to grow as it does get rooted. Now that we have it planted, we want to keep it in an area that's going to stay warm without any precipitation and without any direct sunlight. So for me, it's going to be in the same place that I allowed the cutting to get cured over. Now you definitely want to make sure that when you're doing this, you're going to give yourself at least 6 weeks where your nighttime temperatures are going to be above 45 degrees Fahrenheit, because you're absolutely going to have the best success if you're able to do this total process outside. So for now, we're just going to sit back, relax, let it do its thing, and if it looks like it's getting too dry and it needs some water, I'll show you what to look for, and so that you will know exactly what to do and when to do it. You might be tempted to give it some more water. You can see it's starting to dry, but there's still some dark section, so we don't want to water it yet. We want to let it get even more dry before we apply the next water. So now you can see it's literally bone dry. You stick your finger in there and it's totally dry, and that's really the time to give it some more water. You want to let it get to that point, and then we'll just water it in just a little bit, not too much. Not going to overdo it. All right, so let's take a look. We've got some progress and it's pretty exciting to see. So it's a bit of a rainy day here in Westchester, and that's exactly why we have it under this covered area, so that it doesn't get any additional precipitation. As you can see, the soil is still really nice and moist, but we have our very first spikes of foliage that are just starting to emanate here on our cutting. Now, sometimes these cuttings can start to create new foliage even without being rooted. So for that reason, we're going to continue to keep it in this covered situation and monitor the dryness or wetness of the soil before watering it again. We want to continue to go through that cycle of letting it get all the way dry before we give it more water. And likewise, we're not going to take it out of the shade just yet. It's in this nice bright area, and that's great. All right, so let's take a look. I've moved it out onto the back deck where it can get a little bit more sunlight, because as you can see, the leaves are almost an inch, and there's a few of them coming along now. You can see there's a little cluster of leaves just getting growing. The reason I am increasing the light is now that it does have some leaves getting started, it will start to benefit more from that sunlight. So I am going to go ahead and give it some more water right now, as it does look pretty dry. And that should be good for now. If I do see any rain on the forecast, I'll make sure that it does stay out of the rain. I don't want any rain just yet. I want to really be in charge of how much precipitation it is receiving at this point along the journey. All right, so it's been 2 solid months since we started our cutting process with our plumeria, and I would say it's definitely been a success. Now, as I was mentioning, I had been basically any time that the rain was on the forecast, I would move my plant under the shelter so that it wouldn't get any additional precipitation, because during the process of getting rooted, if it gets too wet for too long, that can definitely cause it to rot out, and that will lead to a failed propagation. But as you can see, I have 3 nice leaves that have really gotten going. So I would definitely say that this has been a success. I ended up having to cut off that branch even lower. Hopefully, my idea is that it should branch out from where I cut it back, but that guy's looking great as well. And at this point, as we are into autumn here, I didn't take it at the best time of the year. I would have preferred to do it as early as possible, maybe in the beginning of June, but you do what you can. I'm going to continue to keep this out in the full sunlight, moving it out of the precipitation, watering it just like I had been showing when it gets really quite dry. But soon enough, I'm going to need to bring it indoors and overwinter them indoors. So for now, this video I think is complete with an absolutely successful propagation. But if you are looking for a video on how to overwinter your plumerias, if you live where you have cold winters like I do here in Westchester, Pennsylvania, definitely subscribe to the channel, as we will be creating videos on how to overwinter our plumerias next. But for now, thanks for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I hope you found this video helpful so that you can root propagation cuttings of our lovely tropical plumerias. Thanks for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I'll catch you next time. Ciao.